Welcome to Work Life by Design. I'm your host, Mel Marsden. If the last few years have taught us anything, it's that change is inevitable and we no longer need to go to work to work. As a workplace dynamic strategist and the founder of Community, I draw back the curtains on my own business, the clients and projects that we deliver, along with tapping into the knowledge and insights from academics, business leaders and champions of change. I believe that our environments have the power to positively influence our behaviour and performance, inspiring our human potential. Welcome back to our final episode in the 6-part series, bringing you all the conversations from my book launch events in Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney as we celebrated the release of The Next Workplace, Designing Dynamic Environments that Inspire Human Potential. Now, today is part 2 of our Sydney event conversation. So if you missed part 1 or any of the previous 5 conversations for that matter, be sure to pop back and tune into those as well. Now, each of these events were held with the purpose of starting a conversation on all things work, people, and place, because I wanted to take the opportunity and do something very intentional in progressing the conversation about enhancing and reimagining our workplaces for a new future. And to do this, I was joined by leaders navigating this new frontier of what work looks like and the role that place plays in elevating our experience of work. Now, our Sydney conversation explored the topics of what they have realised about the importance of the workplace, how they have seen the evolution of curating the employee experience in the workplace and what that looks like for them, how our workplaces can effectively support belonging and build connection in our people, and what flexibility at work really looks like, and ultimately, what does a good workplace look like? So to join me in this conversation, I invited Brad Krauskopf, the CEO of Hub Australia, to join us, along with Sophie Hart, the co-founder of the Serenity Collective and host of the Thriving Workplace event, and Nicole Karagianis, the Chief People Officer at Harrison AI. Now, each of our guests bring a very unique perspective to this conversation with very thoughtful insights that even invited me to think more deeply about some of my own ideas. And I hope that this episode starts to inspire some of your thinking on what you can do to elevate the conversation in your workplace. Now, this is part 2 from our Sydney conversations and our final episode in the 6-part series. So if you have missed any of the conversations from Brisbane, Melbourne and Sydney, be sure to head back and tune into those. My book explores each of these topics and many, many more. And over the coming weeks, I'll be sharing some of the key insights that I share in the book with you. However, if you can't wait and you're keen to read more, you can head over to my website, melissamarsden.com.au/book and order your copy now. But to wrap up the book tour, let's get into today's episode. My next question is around hybrid working, and this is the latest workplace approach that many organisations are sort of starting to grapple with. And, we've talked about the fact that probably a lot of our leaders aren't really equipped with the capability of managing a team that they can't see, and it's a challenge that many of us are looking at. But, with 4 in 5 employees wanting to work hybridly now, I think it's really important for us to start considering this, but at the same time, it's also important to note that, a hybrid workplace is not something that comes out of a box. It's not something you order. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's very much a nuanced approach to supporting the organisation and the unique requirements of that particular organisation, and really understanding the intricacies that determine what are actually required in that particular workplace. Because, even in the work that I do, understanding one accounting company to a different accounting company, the culture's different, the departments are different, the people are different, the work that they do is different, the clients that they deliver for are different. And all of those things play into a structural change around how that workplace actually needs to perform. And so I think in essence for employees to be able to work in that hybrid way, we really need to be able to look at what flexibility looks like. And we've kind of already touched on this a little bit, but flexibility to me is really about choice. And it's the choice of where I work and how I work and when I work. And it's not purely bound by the physical environment. But I'd be keen to understand from your perspective, what experiences have you observed around flexibility within the workplace, and what opportunities do you see for organisations to be really creative around what flexibility brings? Because as we've said, not everyone works in an office, not everyone can work remotely. What kind of things can we do to create flexibility that is a bit more creative and out of the box? Who wants to crack off first?
I'd probably love to touch on a personal example, which is at the heart of all of this is trust and not feeling judged. And easiest example is I was the only one on the Zoom call at our leadership meeting, our exec meeting, and the whole executive team was in the office. For not 1 minute in that meeting did I feel excluded, or that I couldn't jump in, or that the space wasn't created for me to contribute, or the thought crossed my mind that, oh my goodness, I made the wrong decision by working from home. Everybody's in the office. Now I'm going to be judged about it. That didn't enter the dialogue. And there's an element of that around the narrative and the story that you tell yourself. A lot of that is your self-talk. A lot of that is, of course, psychological safety in the workplace that's led to that self-talk, and so much nuance around that. Really, what we're trying to do is watch out for those who are actually working from home, who end up working longer because their commute time is now their sitting down time, and calling them out. So we actually actively worked over the past 2 years on not giving someone a kudos or a voucher or something for working long hours or working on the weekend. And that language doesn't enter in our reward and recognition program. And we celebrate those people who show up to the kids' assembly, or who signed off at 4:00 to go and do a parent-teacher thing, whatever it is. We actually look for them and celebrate them to actually role model and influence everyone to do it.
I love that you're shining a spotlight on it. That's awesome. Yeah. Well done. And how about you, Soph? What are you seeing?
Well, seeing a lot of things. Again, I think when it comes to flexibility, when we're talking about when and where, Gary's in the room here, and they have at Ream a wonderful playbook. And a couple of organisations have this, a flexibility playbook, and it gives organisations a guardrails, which Brené Brown talks about again, guardrails to know, expectations of what kind of things could be flexible. And it empowers middle managers to be able to start making decisions, because it's really tough for them. They've never had to deal with this kind of thing before. And so giving them something like a playbook can, empower them to make those choices with their people, because it is individual.
Yeah, it's not a one size fits all. And the fact that you've got those playbooks and those guardrails, it helps, as you said, empower those managers to be able to make decisions, because they feel like they're sticking their neck out on the line as well when they decide, that person can have this, but that person can't. And it's being able to sign off on those things. They've got that.
They do. Yeah. And one thing I just wanted to talk about flexibility is we talk about when and where so much, but we don't talk about how and what as much. And this is certainly what our community of organisational leaders are talking about now is, what you're working on. So job crafting, maybe as a team, you could come together and say, I don't like writing so much. You like writing, you do the writing bits and I'll do the talking bits. So yeah, it's really playing to your strengths. Yeah. It improves well-being, it improves connection.
I like that approach as well, because, the other thing that we've seen a lot is, we're still working that 8-hour a day kind of mentality, because we're paid for 8 hours, so we need to work 8 hours. If I can get my job done in 4, why can't I go to the beach for the other 4? Let's start talking about output as opposed to time. So, and what have you got to add to that, Brian?
Yeah, one of the challenges that we've had is the 70% of our team is hospitality frontline, but 30% are back office, and setting different rules for different teams. It's a challenge. I wish I could tell you what the solution was yet, but I haven't figured that out yet. I'm just sharing that it's a genuine challenge. We've even thrown around ideas of, rather than the officially recognised public holidays, you let people take public holidays that are more recognised to their faith or their culture. Another one that I heard thrown around is, rather than having parental leave, that you could have puppy leave for people who have chosen not to have kids. If you actually challenge yourself, and definitely this is not about work from home or work from the office. As soon as you reduce it to that, you're done for. But then just challenge yourself, say, how do I make it that Stevie has flexibility in his work when he's in at barista? I'll admit we're still completely challenged as to what are the different ways to do it, but we've all got to take that on.
Yeah, I think it starts with a conversation. It's like, okay, what would flexibility look like for you, and how could we create that opportunity? And I suppose the next point I've got is that in my experience, workplaces have been really created to respond to the unique and individual requirements of businesses. And when they are done in that way, as opposed to this very cookie cutter, like everyone gets a desk and it's, this repetitive kind of pattern, it can really impact on the performance of the business. And I've seen incredible gains, everything from job satisfaction to employee happiness, increased communication, collaboration, and, even increased performance. And the outcome of that is really about increased financial gain that comes from an organisation as well as a direct result of the workplace environment. And a really great example of this is the project that we delivered for Mappy in Brisbane.
So they were a 35-year-old organisation. They had 35 offices for their 35 employees. Everyone was in a little box, and we took them and transformed them into a very agile environment. It was very open. We used the concept of the eudaimonia machine, where you kind of work progressively through the environment into deeper and deeper, more cognitive work. And the result for that is it's been a completely transformational process around the mindset of their people, but also the mindset of their organisation. It was really interesting to see that project. It's 4 years on now. We can see how that's actually transitioned. But that transformation actually saw them achieve their highest financial performance just 6 months after moving into that space. They went through a significant merger after that, and they did it very successfully. They've now gone on to acquire a number of other businesses, and they've been able to do it very seamlessly, all within that existing space. And the mindset of their people has been a big part of that process because of the way that the space has been created. And I think, that's just a true testament to the fact that as people, we really are a product of our environment. And so my question is for you is, what have you seen to be the impact of good workplace design and good workplace environments on people and on businesses? And I might start with you, Brad. Like, how have you seen that shift organisations? And I'm sure you've got some great examples there.
Our commitment to being in the Great Places to Work program, that's had a definite impact. I wish we had figured it out earlier. If we create a great place to work for our team, they'll create a great place to work for our customers. So I think and even the B Corp and the certified carbon neutral, that has always been part of the values since day one. But certainly from a business side of things, up until recently, it's always been more on the talent attraction and recruitment, was where if I have to come up with the business justification for it. But now we're seeing more and more that it's a part of the customer choice. We have had people choose Hub because they know that their office is certified carbon neutral. And then they're now getting their certified carbon neutral as an organisation because they then use it to attract and retain staff. And I guess each of the examples that I've used there had nothing to do with office design and actually how you set it up. It's how you're creating a culture, because the workspace, it's just a tool in how you create it's another piece of the puzzle. Trying to work out what the workspace means to your organisation will kind of, guide you on a way to getting there.
It's that employee value proposition, really.
Completely. And then depending on what kind of business you offer, like for us, it is that very direct line, because we also create workspace experiences for their businesses and their teams. So it's drawing a line that creates value for your business is where you need to look.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sophie, what have you seen in terms of the organisations that you've been part of, in terms of what a good workplace environment has had on their business?
Well, Claire and I love to go around to people's offices and check them out. We went to Gary's office. It's night and day between what you can experience. And I have to say, I'm going to blow your trumpet now a little bit, Mel. When we went to Davidson up in Brisbane, we ran some research up in Brisbane, and Mel recommended the Davidson office, which he had designed. That was the buzziest we'd seen. We couldn't believe it, could we, Claire? There were people there, but they were using the quiet pods. There were people chatting. They were like gannets around the food we'd ordered. There was the most people in there that we'd seen in any office.
Yeah.
But also research that we're about to release next week, which we did with 500 leaders across Australia with a company called the Oranges Toolkit, is 1/3 of people said that their office design would make a difference to their ability to feel connected to their workplace.
Yeah.
So these people are, they're from all different areas of business. They're saying, put their hand up and say, we need this. We need a better workplace experience.
And for example, that Davidson workplace, the previous space that they were in was very segregated. So they had actually ended up with 4 siloed teams because of the way that the space had been designed and the physical barriers that the physical environment actually created in terms of how they did business. So it made a big impact on them and their workplace. And how about, you guys have got a great workplace and your new workplace. How has that kind of worked?
It's been wonderful in that sense of pride. And it reminds me of that whole analogy around you invite people into your home and you're proud of your clean home. So just to see, like when we have external visitors and see all candidates, where you do use it as a recruitment tool, say, we're remote first, but if you like to work from the office, come and check it out. And so for me, the thing that comes to mind is the cleanliness and the pride that comes with that. And just to end on a little anecdote, we had a work health and safety WHS consultant come in and do our review of the office, and she opens the fridge with myself and and our office manager who does, bring a great atmosphere into the place and brings it alive. And her comment was, I can always tell a lot by companies in terms of the hygiene of their fridge and how clean it is. And you're this clean, Vince, 10 out of 10, you passed. And we're so proud of that. And it's like, go and check out our clean fridges. It says a lot about our culture. So, yeah, just the little things like this that makes you laugh.
I've got at 4 o'clock on a Friday, clean the fridge out. So, like,
you just have to throw everything out.
It's gone. But it's interesting that you mentioned that pride is a big part there, because the Leesman Index have developed from their impact code that the number one thing that people determine in terms of their employee experience within a workplace is pride. That's how it shows up. So it is number one in terms of determining what that impact is on our environment. So you're doing something right there. So my final question tonight for you guys is, we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about a lot of different things, but if we were to think about one last thing that we could each do to elevate the experience of work for our people, what do you think that could be? And I'll start with you, Brad.
The experience is like, don't employ a facilities manager, employ a community manager or a workspace manager, because ultimately the role of the workspace for you going forward will be attracting, retaining that person, and also just making them feel like I go back to that, they're a part of something bigger. The way that you're going to do that is going to vary from organisation to organisation. We've certainly seen that the programming of events and learning, and actually most importantly the social experiences, and interestingly pre-pandemic we had the Friday wind down, now it's the breakfast club. So you got to constantly change and recognise what is actually working for your people.
People aren't in the office on a Friday afternoon to actually have a wine.
You're absolutely right. People aren't there. So, focus on the experience that you're trying to create, not the space you're trying to create.
Yeah, good advice. What do you reckon, Sophie?
Just to approach it all with a learning mindset and experiment with different things. I loved how you said, Brad, around you don't know the answers to flexibility because it's really hard having the hospitality people that have to be here. Like, leaders need to be vulnerable and authentic and say, we've never been in this space before. We don't have all the answers. We're going to test some things. We want your feedback all the time into what's working, what's not. It is an experiment, and to just keep seeing what's working.
For me, the one thing I would elevate is to empower people to ask for what they want. It's a lot of the times it's about just ask. Why didn't you ask? Of course we'll accommodate. Just tell us.
What do our workplaces look like when we no longer need to go to work? As organisations navigate a new frontier, struggling to work out what's next in today's hybrid and distributed world, how can we leverage one of our greatest assets, our workplace? My book, The Next Workplace, Designing Dynamic Environments that Inspire Human Potential, will show you how to leverage your workplace to attract and retain talent, increase employee engagement, and elevate employee experience, plus deliver bottom-line returns on your investment. The Next Workplace is the ultimate playbook. It will inspire your thinking, show you how to unlock the data in your business, provide you with the resources to build your business case with confidence, and reveal the proven frameworks and practical tools to align, enable, and inspire the human potential within your organisation. So, to grab your copy and begin to reimagine your next workplace, head over to my website, melissamarsden.com.au/book. So unfortunately, the audio that we had from the audience Q&A was a little bit sketchy. What I've done is I'm going to paraphrase each of the questions that actually came from the audience so that you can hear how our panelists responded to these and the insights that came from these further questions. So to kick it off, the first question that came from the audience was about our business leaders. So they've been hearing the message that a lot of our business leaders have been asking our employees to get their bums back in the office, and despite all of this talk of flexibility. The example that was thrown out there was of Elon Musk and how he's been putting camp beds into offices. And so the question kind of wrapped up into being, are we just being really soft on ourselves? Do we think we're going to need a recession to get us back into the office? Or, are leaders really just being out of date? And someone else sort of chimed into that and added to the question, do our business leaders really want us back in the office? Or is that just a perception?
Yeah, it is a good question. There was also another commentary around all of the things that Elon Musk did at Twitter, particularly around when he cut a lot of the workforce. The extent to which people had, like tech firms had got completely out of hand, also with, how many people they brought on, the salaries, the inequality that fed into. There was a double-edged sword to that. And I guess in the industry that we're in here, there are a lot of property people who would wish that it would actually just snap back. If people are only coming into the office every few days a week, is that ultimately going to mean that the workspace ends up, that there's a correction in commercial property values? There probably does need to be. But what we will also find is the premium buildings are probably still going to keep on being able to maintain their value and really supercharge their rents. Whereas though a lot of the B-grade property, and unfortunately most workspaces, unfortunately, are actually pretty crappy.
Yeah.
Like if you go around the world, it's the majority of them are crappy. The odd one out is the good ones, if you look at it globally. So there is also a recognition here that we actually need to completely retool and upgrade so much of the office stock in order to get people to come back into work. And I think it is that, like, make the workspace bloody good, and you won't have to demand people come into the office, they'll choose to. And I think that's that aspiration that we've got to get to.
Can I add to that it's a fine line? Yeah, there's a legislative piece around the different countries around the world. And at the same time, the world's getting smaller and smaller. Someone sneezes in Silicon Valley and you know all about it on LinkedIn. So that's becoming tougher to manage, and to make sure that as a leader, you're operating within your context and your country, the laws and so on. But also, I guess for me, it's a fine line between saying, come into the office, I need to see you. And that questions the trust piece that we talked about. But also the other piece to that is go back to your data. What's your employee survey saying? Do people like the flexibility? Can you afford to lose people as a result? Because chances are you will. If you can afford to lose them and you still want to go there, great, do it. If not, don't operate out of the fear of what if my people, leave me, but also don't operate in the land of I don't care if they do. And find that really good middle ground and the balance between I have the right to ask for what I need to run my business, but also I need to respect and trust my people.
Just as we do with our people, it's got to be an individual. Well, you got to look at individuals. We got to look individually at the business leaders and the CEOs as well. There might be some who are just archaic and they think we've always done it that way. So how can I check that my people are working if I can't see them underneath me? But there's probably others who have genuine concerns about collaboration, innovation, etc. And then we need to look at, how can we replicate innovation and collaboration and empower it in this hybrid world of work, because at the moment it's not going anywhere. So and there are other CEOs on the other end of the scale that probably just want to do the good thing for all the people. I mean, they're probably rare, and I think, the statistics probably like 56 of CEOs want their people back. So there's still 40, I'm terrible at maths, but 44% that don't. So, you got to look at it in the bigger perspective as well.
The thing I'd add to that is that in what I'm seeing, it's particular sectors tend to be a bit more archaic than others, and they are the ones who are traditionally kind of expecting people to come back into the workplace. And conversely, on the other side of that, though, I am seeing very progressive CEOs who are wanting to create this flexibility amongst their workforces, but it's their middle managers who don't know how to do that. They don't have the capability. They don't understand what's within their remit. They don't know where they can actually make decisions. And that's what's then impacting on their ability to actually enable that flexibility. So I think there's a few different levels to this one.
Now, the next question that came from the audience actually came from my assistant, Claire, which I was a little bit skeptical about to see what was going to come out, but it was a fantastic question. And so her question was to Nicole to further build on the question that she had answered earlier about why people weren't asking for what they want, because many organisations were possibly able to accommodate these needs if only people were asking. And her question was, do you think that what people are asking for now, post-COVID as opposed to pre-COVID, is actually different? And is their expectations of what they're looking for around flexibility actually different? And so the example she gave is, pre-COVID, you may be asking to actually go to a doctor's appointment, whereas now what you're really asking for is you just want to work from home. And that's actually quite a big shift. And so what she was concerned about, or what she was asking, is that why perhaps people are actually scared to ask?
There's an element of pre, post, during COVID that definitely is a factor. It's a bit of a layered cake. There's an element of their life has changed as well. You know, once upon a time I was in the office at 5 a.m. Pre-kids, and now good luck getting me before 9:30. With that goes a whole heap of your identity is changing as a person, as a mother, as a father, as a pet, or, you know, a pet person or whatever it is. You're struggling with rediscovering who you are as your life is changing. And so add to that the layer of fear of asking. So there's a lot. We can be here talking about psychology and neuroscience for days, but it's the psychological factors as to what's going on in your life. And then there's this layer of, as I move further and up that leadership ladder, there's unfortunately still in our society this concept of I need to be on 24/7 for my team, at the same time as looking like I'm role modeling flexibility and going to kids events. And that's BS. Like, we need to be more gentle towards our leaders and empowering them to stop the self-talk, around the I need to be on and available and 24/7 and all of that stops them from asking for what they really want. Plus, there's, to wrap it all up with a nice bow, there's this element of we're so busy that we haven't stopped to go back to mindfulness and asked ourselves, what do I actually want? And then I can ask
That's
for it.
That's a really good point. Thank you for sharing that. Great question.
And our final question that came from the audience on the evening was from two ladies who are from an organisation who are going through and experiencing quite a bit of growth at the moment. And with that has obviously brought the opportunity for them to be able to move offices. And so they're in the process of developing their employee value proposition at the moment, and they're really in a scale-up phase of the business. But the two of them, as someone who is part of people and culture and the other in talent marketing, they're not really being part of the conversation at the moment around the office move. But both are very passionate about the office experience. And so their question to the panel was, do you have any advice in regards to our executive presence and how we can be a part of those conversations?
I think us asking, going back to the theme of, is there a focus group? Is there a working group? Can I please be invited? No one's going to say no. You're not part of this conversation. If they do, my advice would be to form your own, come together as a team of whoever you think cares about this, put your own recommendations, your own thoughts. What do we want from our office move, and put that forward to the project lead or to the relevant executive team member. Say, please take these into consideration because we really care about our EVP, A, being shaped by the move, and B, having the move being shaped by the EVP, chicken and egg. So that's just a couple of practical things you can do.
Buy them a copy of Mel's book. Book a tour for them at Hub. Look, figuring out a way to move that conversation to the reason for the workspace is the people and not the other way around. And I don't know your organisation, so I'm not going to say this is what you should do, apart from the book and Hub thing. You got to craft to figure out how to make this a decision about your people, not a decision about a location.
I think that's great advice. And the only thing I would add to that is that, the whole idea of understanding the return on investment that creating a great workplace for your people is going to give to your business, and being able to communicate that is going to give you so much more leverage in being able to contribute to that conversation and actually being heard, because unfortunately, this is the situation I've seen with many people leaders, is that it's run by finance, it's remitted by facilities, and it's just to roll out an office. We're going to get the cheapest space we can. We're going to fit it out as cheap as we can. We're just going to chuck all this stuff in there and we're going to expect people to come back. And it's not delivering an experience, and it doesn't deliver the ROI that it can as an organisation. And, as Brad said, the book will help you immensely. Look, so I'm going to take an opportunity to wrap up here. And look, tonight would really not have been possible without the support of some very, very special people. So I really would like to say thank you to our panellists for joining us tonight, for sharing your knowledge, for sharing your expertise, and, for having the opportunity to have been able to work alongside you, work in your spaces and work with you guys has been wonderful. So thank you. I really want to say thank you to Brad again and the team here at Hub for being our venue sponsor and for this evening and sharing this lovely space with us. And it is a beautiful space and as is many of the Hub spaces. I'd also like to extend a very heartfelt thank you to all of you who have supported me along the way, who have inspired me, who have challenged me, and to those that have been a sounding board for me in preparing and writing the book, because you've really given me the confidence to put a lot of my thoughts into words and then to actually publish it. It's all very good and well to talk about this stuff, but then to put it into writing and put it into print and put it out there in the world is a very different thing. So thank you to everyone who has contributed to that along the way. I'd also like to say thank you to all of my clients who have, allowed me to work with them and to develop these great places that I have with them, but also to those that have enabled me to actually give their case studies in the book. That's been a wonderful joy to be able to do that and to share their learnings and their opportunities and their lessons that they have got. I would like to say a big heartfelt thank you to Claire. Claire is my assistant, and this is the first event that she's actually been able to attend. She has been extremely ill, so she's missed the first 2 events, and tonight is the first night that she's actually been able to share with me. So she's put all of the hard work in behind the scenes to make this tonight, so thank you. None of this would have been actually possible without you, so thank you for everything, and I really do appreciate it. I'd like to thank everyone for coming along tonight in support of me and supporting the book and for participating in this conversation, so thank you so much. It's really been an opportunity for us to share our insights, our learnings, and what we really can do to elevate everyone's experience of work, which is exactly what the book's about and what I hope to achieve in the work that I do.